Hey everyone, it's Mike the Naked Bigfoot here. As I've been posting on a little bit of my social media and on Twitter, I've had the opportunity to assist a local paranormal team with an investigation. Um, Long story short, they came out to the home. It's about 2 hours away from where I live out here in Blue Ridge, Virginia. And the team was called out to a home, very prominent, well-to-do family, grandparents, grandchildren, whole 9 yards, because the grandparents and the grandchildren have been experiencing some critter that was tormenting and terrifying the grandkids, and eventually found its way into the house and was tormenting and scaring the grandparents very badly. The paranormal team, which is it's a team of Hank and Melanie. They're not terribly they prefer not to be entirely well known, but they're Hank and Melanie are absolutely awesome people to work with. I've known them for over a decade, and I've worked with them a few times on and off in various investigations locally. And what they found out when they came there to investigate it, they thought it was a ghost or a spirit, because this house is a very old Reconstruction, Southern Reconstruction house, but that fell about around the antebellum period. It's a very large, very old house. It had been in this family's family, in their family, for generations. And there's been members of the family living in this house for generations. It's a massive house, absolutely beautiful, on a huge old piece of property. The way I'm beating around the bush about this family is they're very well known in the state of Virginia. I respect their privacy and keeping it anonymous. They have an amount of pride and dignity. They think they would lose face if they believe they had something like this happen to them and had to call in people like me to help them out with it. So I respect that. I respect their privacy and their decision not to give their names out. Hopefully Hank and Melanie, they got some really interesting video. Hopefully they'll convince them to let them publish more of the video, and publish the video period that they got while they were there. But that's not what they do it for. The Hank and Melanie don't do it for fame or to be noticed. They do it to help people, which is kind of what's been my lot in life. Everything I've ever done has been to help people. But I digress. What they saw on the property, Hank and Melanie, and what the grandkids described and the grandparents described on the property, was a small little creature with red eyes, that started out scaring the kids under one of the largest old willow trees I've ever seen in my life, out in the back property where the kids would go out and play in, and it would pop up in the trees and hiss at them and jump down at them, and they'd go right into the house screaming. So naturally, their grandparents and their family thought it was like a wild possum or something. They didn't think, supernatural creature or cryptid out there trying to get their grandkids. Well, this thing found its way into the house, and the grandparents saw it in the hallways leading down to where the kids would sleep at night. They saw it creeping down the hallway, going towards their grandkids' bedroom. And when the grandfather shouted out at it, he couldn't make out a lot of features of it. He could make out long ears, of course the red eyes, and very long fingers and arms and legs, but a very squat body, and it was creeping down through the hallway. When he yelled out around it, it whirled around on him, and he saw teeth, a flash of white teeth, almost like a grin on its face. And he swore that he heard it laugh at him, this hissing laugh, and it disappeared. It just stepped back and deeper into the shadows and disappeared. It scared the hell out of him. Well, this happened. They saw it several more times in the hallway, and the kids started seeing it underneath their bed, this long fingers coming out from beneath their bed, trying to scare them. Hank and Melanie, they got great pictures and video of scratch marks on the wooden floors and on the bedposts, supposedly made by this thing. It was 3-fingered scratches across the wood and along the hallway where they had seen it walking. They got pictures of the willow tree where there were long, deep, gouged in scratches onto the willow tree. And scratching footprints going towards the windows of the house because the kids were seeing it outside their bedroom window before it came inside. Hank and Melanie they thought immediately, this is not a ghost. This is not their average haunting or spirit or poltergeist or residual haunting. So they called the resident monster guy in to see what he thought about it. And that was me, of course. So I had my son drive me down there and I had them walk me through the property. Hank and Melanie, and I got a chance to talk to the grandparents and grandkids and look around a little bit. And my first assumption was it was definitely something supernatural, but it wasn't anything human. And just my basic walking around and listening to how this thing was sneaking through the house and sneaking across the property, it reminded me of 2 things off the top of my head, and it liked to scare people. It didn't hurt anybody, but it liked to jump out and scare people. Was at first I thought it would maybe have been, your classic goblin, your classic fairy goblin that was out on the property. Because remember, this property is old as hell. There could be any kind of elemental living out here. My second guess was something called a fair, which is Feyr. It's a manifestation of fear itself. It takes on the form of fear. It can't hurt you, but it exists just to scare the hell out of you. And then as I was walking around the property, the grandmother had mirrors all over the property, all over the house, old mirrors. But one in particular caught my attention when I was walking through and I was discussing with Hank and Melanie what I thought it was. And I noticed this huge mirror in the main sitting room. But I'm going to pause it right there just to leave you hanging and tell you what happened to me when I touched this mirror that got my attention.